Super Rugby, we got 7 rounds before the suspension of the games. I thought, why don't we have a look at the 3 conferences and see which players have been some of the more impressive players from each of the teams. It's been kind of an interesting one. I've had a look at the New Zealand conference first. I'm going to pick a player from each team and say kind of why he's been one of the outstanding players of the season thus far. Like I said, it's been an interesting one because so many of the Super Rugby teams lost a lot of their big guns. It's the South Africans, New Zealanders, Australians. They all had big name players go abroad, and at least for the New Zealand conference anyway, the guys that I've picked here are all remarkably young, which I guess speaks well for how we are tracking in terms of bringing talent through. At least here in New Zealand, I'm still yet to do South Africa and Australia, but yeah, it's been a fun look kind of diving through the stats like I do. But yeah, I'll put the guys up and you guys can let me know your thoughts. Certainly not the right list. It's just 5 guys that I think have done really well. There are certainly others as well. Start with the Blues. This is more like a geographic order than anything else from top to bottom, not preferred teams or anything. I've gone with Mark Telea. If you've seen him playing for the Blues this year, he is having one heck of a season, man. He has been in devastating form. He's one of the real finds of the year. I know he's with the Hurricanes before in the wider training squad, but in his Blues career, he has started off with a real hiss and a roar. He averages 104 run meters a game, which is an exceptional number. I mean, some guys get in the kind of 50s, 60s, but he's at 104, which puts him number 1 in Super Rugby on average run meters per game. He also averages 6.7 defenders beaten a game, which is also number 1 in Super Rugby on average. So I think there was one game he had like 13 defenders beaten, or was it 16? Maybe it was 13. Ridiculous numbers, man. Like, people just don't break that many tackles, but he's doing it. So he's number 1 in Super Rugby for beaten defenders and for run meters. He's had 5 tries in 7 games, which is a pretty good return, and he is just looking like an absolute powerhouse. He has better handling when you look at his kind of handling era stats compared to some of the other comparable wingers who've got kind of similar stats. Like George Bridge from the Crusaders has also got really good run meter stats and line breaks and whatnot. But Telea makes the average of 0.9 handling errors a game, whereas Bridge is 2.4. Admittedly, Bridge has spent some time at fullback as well, where he's fielding high balls, and if you're fielding high balls, I mean, wingers do it as well, but you're more likely to kind of be put in a situation where you're under pressure trying to take a high ball, so maybe that's part of the reason. But that being said, if you are kind of to compare all the things, not just his kind of strong stats, other wingers do tend to make more tackles than Telea. So like Bridge averages 6 a game, Henry Spate around about 6 a game, Telea's at 3.6. So he's not being asked defensively to do that much work. His tackling rate is fine. It's no worse than anyone else kind of in his position. He also has around about 3 passes a game, but some of the other guys are passing more than him. So for the minute, it seems like, based on the stats, that he is just kind of doing, for the most part, the just out and out winger thing. I know he's got at least 1 try assist in that game against the Lions, but for the most part, he's getting the ball, he's running it tons of meters, and he is busting all kinds of tackles on the way, which is fine. That's like, I guess, the core game of a winger is to do that, either beat defenders with good steps or with power. So yeah, he's causing all kinds of havoc. Definitely not a bad thing. He's only 23 years old. Very exciting prospect for the Blues going forward. Next, from the Chiefs, I have gone with Lachlan Boshier. He is also having one heck of a season. At the breakdown, he has just been lethal. He averages forcing 2 breakdown penalties a game and 0.6 clean pilfers per game. So 2 or 3 times a game at least, he is taking the ball from the opposition. So he is forcing individually, turnovers from the opposition. So his tackling stats, I mean, if you take, he's like point 0.1 like tackle per game from being in the top 10 tacklers in Super Rugby. So he's making a lot of tackles. And he only misses 0.8 tackles a game. Like if you compare that to some of the other guys, like even Sam Cane in his own team, Sam Cane's missing 2 tackles a game. So for the fact that Bushy is less than 1, and he's among almost, he's like 11th, the top 10 tacklers in Super Rugby, he is putting in a heck of a shift. He's also one of the top try-scoring forwards. He's had 3 tries in 5 games. The one thing he's not, again, if you're looking at kind of the other side of the coin, he's not a real big run meter guy. Like there's other guys like Tom Sanders, Rob Valtini. These guys are getting 50 meters a game. Bushy is at like 27 meters, which is, again, it's fine, but that's just not his key strength. It's not the reason you would pick him as being one of the more outstanding players of Super Rugby. It's those turnovers, it's those tackles. So, yeah, man, 25 years old, and he's also still kind of in the upper area for things like passes, tackle busts, all that kind of stuff. So he's very good all round and exceptional in a couple of other areas. So he is having an absolute stellar year. Hurricanes, I'm going to risk putting this guy's name up here. I know he's not a popular chap with everybody, but it is Geordie Barrett. Now, with his brother gone, it's kind of a chance for him to stand up and to a degree be his own man. And I think we've seen him do that this year. He's kind of out from his brother's shadow, with his brother firstly not playing, but he's also not with the Canes. If Bodie was already playing with the Blues, they never play different positions for the most part, but there would be comparisons. But he's been doing his own thing, so it's been really great to see. It maybe justifies a bit, there's still that talk sometimes he gets his All Black caps for his surname, not necessarily for the things he's been putting on the pitch. I think what he's been putting on the pitch this year has been pretty good. And it's not all just like kind of traditional flashy Barrett stuff. It's some kind of core role stuff. Like his goal kicking is at 80%. He's been asked to do the goal kicking. If you saw that game against the Chiefs, you know he's doing really well with that. He's averaging 8.4 points a game. If you cut the guys who've only played like one game, and there's a few guys who've played one game and either got like 2 tries or kicked a few penalties or something, it puts him like 3rd on the board. So pretty solid. He averages an enormous 300 meters kicked. So he's putting that big boot of his. We're talking kicks from hand. So kicking his team up the field, 300 meters, which is second only behind Kerwin Bosch, who's also got a very big boot. And he's got good numbers for things like tackle busts, run meters, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you feel like he's becoming a bit of a leader. He's, I guess, becoming one of the more senior guys with the amount of time he's been playing. Certainly not based on his age. He's only 23. But, yeah, he's taking ownership of his role. He's kind of seeing out some of that potential that the All Blacks coaching staff have seen in him for a few years. As I mentioned, that clutch moment against the Chiefs, I think he's having a pretty good season. Next, from the Crusaders, I've gone with Tom Christie. And he's another guy who's got one aspect of his game which is particularly exceptional. He is a tackler. This guy lives and breathes making tackles all day long. He averages 18.5 tackles per game. So it puts him out and out number one guy, average tackles per game in Super Rugby. The next best is not 17, 16, but it's 15.2. So that just shows you the kind of massive, massive ticker this guy has got to be making that many tackles. He's made 111 tackles and missed 3, which is just a phenomenal, phenomenal effort. He does force the odd penalty, but you wouldn't really call him a pilfer man. I guess he's the guy who makes the tackle and hopes that the rest of the team, like the second man to arrive or something, is also helping to get in there and maybe turn the ball over. So imagine if him and Boshier were on the same team. He's scored 2 tries in 6 games, which is solid. He averages 24 meters a run, like a game, which is, again, solid without being overly spectacular, but it's not poor. It's not like he's 5 or 10 meters a game, so he's still putting in a shift. He's also not big on defenders beaten, but he's a solid passer. He's got better handling stats than most guys in his position. 22 years old, so another very young man who at this rate's got a pretty bright career ahead of him. And it is just like the Crusaders to kind of, nurture that talent and make star players come out of there. So whether he's got All Black written on him, I guess we'll wait and see. It's a bit early to say, 22 years old, but it's nice to see that the Crusaders, having lost so many, big star players from the All Blacks, have just been able to bring guys through the ranks, and this guy is looking very good. Now, for the Highlanders, it was a bit of a tougher choice. They're having kind of the worst season of the 5 New Zealand teams thus far. But I have gone ahead and picked a player. I've gone with Jonah Nareki. He's been around the kind of Mitre 10 Cup scene for a while, and he's always looked like a promising player, and he is showing some of us what he can do at Super Rugby. Look, he's 22 years old, so another very young man. And he's on a team which has been ordinary. He's played 5 games. He's scored 3 tries, which again, I mean, that's comparable to some of the guys who are playing in teams which are doing a lot better in terms of their record. He's also got 1 try assist. In terms of wingers, he's in the top 10 for a lot of things, like line breaks, average of 1 per game, line break assists every other game, which means he's not just kind of out and out winger. He's got more aspects to his game than that. Tackle bust 3.2 per game again, which is solid, but like half of what Talia is getting. But Talia is just that total top echelon. Even for kick meters and among wingers, he is like among some of the top guys. So he's never the number 1 guy, but consistently across many categories, he is top 5, top 10. So yeah, man, I think if he was playing on a team which was doing more successfully than the Highlanders are this season, he would probably even have better numbers than he does. But that is what it is. Those are my 5 guys from the New Zealand Conference. I will at some point, probably shortly, have a look at South Africa and Australia as well, including the Hawares and including the Sunwolves, of course. I think I already know who my Sunwolves pick is, but the other teams I will have to have a look. But yeah, these 5 guys, Talia, Boshia, Barrett, Christie, and Nareki, I think are all having pretty good seasons. A good mix. 3 backs and 2 forwards. I think when I did the Six Nations, I think I had more forwards. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. There's certainly other guys on these teams who are doing really well. I won't go and name them here, but I'll leave that to you guys to chuck their names in the comments and why do you reckon they're doing so well. And yeah, cheers guys. Talk to you soon. See you later.